In this video, we'll be taking a look at multiplying numbers with decimals. Now let's get started. Let's say we had 3.6 multiplied by 3. So we would multiply as we would usually multiply with whole numbers. So 3 times 6, 18, carrier 1. 3 3 is 9, plus 1, that's 10. Now, we have a decimal right here, a decimal point. So to determine where we should put our decimal point in our answer, we should count how many numbers are behind that decimal point. So right now we only have one number that's behind the decimal point, which is the 6. And so we should only have one number behind the decimal point in our answer. So our result is 10.8. Now let's say we had 8.2 multiplied by 3.3. Now again, we should go ahead and multiply as we'd usually do. So 3 times 2 is 6. 3 8 is 24. Now remember, whenever we skip a line, we add a 0. So 1 0 here. 3 times 2 is 6. And 3 8 is 24. We go ahead and we find the sum of all these numbers. So that will be 6, 10, carrier 1, 7, and 2. Now that we found our answer, we now need to put our decimal point. Now again, we go back up here and we count how many numbers are behind the decimal point. So right here we have 1 and 2. So our answer should have 2 numbers behind the decimal point, and so our answer, or final answer, would be 27.06. Now let's move on to another problem. And let's say we had 13.4 multiplied by 6.2. Okay, so again, we approach as we usually would. 2 times 4, that's 8. 2 times 3, that's 6. 2 times 1, that's 2. When we skip a line, we add a 0. 6 times 4, that's 24. Carrier 2. 6 times 3 is 18 plus 2, that's 20. Carrier 2. And 6 times 1, that's 6 plus 2, that's 8. We go ahead and we add these numbers. So that would be an 8. This would be 10. We carry a 1. This would be 3. And this would be 8. Now, to determine where our decimal point will go in our final answer, again, we take a look up here. And we notice that we have 2 numbers behind the decimal point. That's the 4 and the 2, which means our answer should have 2 numbers behind the decimal point. So we put our decimal point here, and our final answer would be 83.08. Now let's take a look at another example, and I'd like for you guys to try this for yourself. Now let's say we had 22.37 multiplied by 1.9. Go ahead and try this one for yourselves, guys. You can go ahead and pause the video. Now, to get our answer, we simply multiply as we usually would. So 7 9s, 63, carrier 6, 3 9s, 27, plus 6, 33, carrier 3, 2 9s, 18 plus 3, that's 21, carrier 2, and 2 9s 18 plus 2, and that's 20. Now, whenever we skip a line, we add a 0. 1 times 7, that's 7. 1 times 3, that's 3. 1 times 2, that's 2. And 1 times 2, that's 2. And so, our final answer, before we add our decimal point, would be 3. That's 10. This is 5. This is 2. And this is 4. Now, to figure out where we should put our decimal point, we need to decide how many numbers are behind the decimal, or behind the decimal point up here. So right here we have 1, 2, and 3, which means our answer should have 3 numbers behind the decimal point. So we have our decimal point will be right here. And so our final answer would be 42.503. Okay, now let's move on to another problem. And let's see if you guys can get this one. So let's say we had 19.85 multiplied by 5.87. You can go ahead and pause the video and try this one for yourself. Now, as we mentioned before, we will go ahead and multiply as we usually do. So 7 times 5, that's 35. Carrier 3. 7 times 8, that should be 56. Plus 3, that's 59. Carrier 5. 7 times 9, that's 63. Plus 5, 68. Carrier 6. And 7 times 1, that's 7. Plus 6, that's 13. Now, remember, when we skip a line, we add a 0. 5 8s, 40. Carrier 4. 8 times 8, that's 64. Plus 4, that's 68. Carrier 6. 8 times 9, that's 72. Plus 6, that's 78. And 8 times 1, that's 8. Plus 7, and that would be 15. Now we have another line to skip, so we add 2 zeros. Now 5 times 5, that's 25. Carrier 2. 5 times 8, that's 40. Plus 2, that's 42. Carrier 4. 5 times 9, that's 45. Plus 4, 49. Carrier 4. And 5 times 1, that's 5. Plus 4, 9. And so you'll see we have our final answer before we add our decimal point will be 5, 9, 16 and 5, that's 21. Carrier 2. 5 plus 8, that's 13. Plus 2, 15. Carry that 1. 6 and 7 plus 9 will be 16. Carry that 1. And then this would be 11. And so our final answer before the decimal point currently would be this result. Now, to add our decimal point, we need to find out what or how many numbers are behind our decimal point up here. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, which means in our final answer, we should have 4 numbers behind our decimal point. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And so our decimal point will be right here. And so our final answer will be 116.5195. Okay, now let's move on to another problem. And let's say I were to give you guys 21.35 multiplied by 4.67. I want you guys to try that one for yourselves and let me know what you get. Now, to solve this, we can go ahead and do our same calculations as we did before. So 7 times 5, so that would be 35. Carry that 3. 3 times 7, that's 21. Plus 3, that's 24. Carry that 2. 7 times 1, that's 7. Plus 2, that would be 9. And 2 times 7 would be 14. We can go ahead and add that 0 as we're skipping a line. Now 6 times 5, that's 30. Carry that 3. 6 times 3, that's 18. Plus 3, and that would be 21. 6 times 1, that would be 6. Plus 2, and that would be 8. And 6 times 2 would be 12. We go ahead and skip another line as we're adding 2 zeros. Now 4 times 5 would be 20. Carry that 2. 4 times 3 would be 12, plus 2 would be 14. Carry that 1. 4 times 1 would be 4, plus 1, that's 5. And 4 times 2 would be 8. And so our final answer before the decimal point will be this result, 5, 4, 10, carry that 1. That'll be 16, 17, carry that 1. this would be 9, and this would be 9. Now, to figure out what or where our decimal will go, we need to count how many numbers are behind the decimal points up here. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we should have 4 numbers behind our decimal point. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so our final answer would be 99.7045. Okay guys, now let's take a look at our final question for our video, and let's see if you can solve this. So let's say we had 33.43 multiplied by 15.15. You can go ahead and pause the video and try this one for yourself, and let's see if you're able to get the answer. Now let's get started, and we'll start from here. So 5 times 3, that will be 15, carrier 1. 5 times 4, that will be 20, plus 1, that's 21, carrier 2. 5 times 3, that will be 15, plus 2, 17, carry that 1. And 5 times 3 would be 15, plus 1, 16. Now we're skipping a line, so we add a 0. 1 times 3 would be 3. 1 times 4 would be 4. 1 times 3 would be 3. And 1 times 3, 3. And so we add 2 more zeros as we're skipping a line. And let's continue. So 5 times 3, that will be 15. Carrier 1. 5 times 4, that will be 20. Plus 1, that's 21. Carrier 2. 5 times 3 would be 15. Plus 2, 17. Carrier 1. And 5 times 3 would be 15. Plus 1, and that would be 16. And as we're skipping another line, we add 3 zeros. Now 1 times 3 would be 3. 1 times 4, 4. 1 times 3, 3. And 1 times 3 would be 3. And so we go ahead and add these numbers. So that would be 5, 4, 16, carry that 1, 10, 11, 14, carry that 1. This would be 12 and 4, 16, carry that 1. This would be 10, and this should be 5. Now, we need to find where we will put our decimal point. And to do so, we need to decide how many numbers are behind the decimal points up here. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we should have 4 numbers behind our decimal point down here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And so our decimal point should go right here. And our final answer would be 506.4645. Now that will be it for our video, guys. Thanks a lot for joining. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe and leave a comment down